Hello and welcome to Harvest to You. I'm Pastor Mark, and it is a blessing to have you with us today. Listen, before we start the sermon, I want you to know about harvesttoyou.org. This is a space where you can find additional resources like sermons and devotionals, even a book I recently wrote. It's also a space where you can request prayer. I know that life can be hard, even lonely sometimes, and we would love to come alongside you with resources, equipping, and prayer for your life. Head on over to harvesttoyou.org. Well, happy Easter Harvest family. It is a joy to be able to fellowship and worship with you this morning. I want you to do something for me. Turn to your neighbor and give them one of the greatest pieces of news you could ever give to someone. Look at them and say, "He is risen." Now look at your neighbor and give them the greatest piece of news you could ever give them. Say, "Your outfit looks good." You know I'm kidding. You know He is risen is better, okay? That is the news for today. He is risen. He is risen indeed. What an incredible day this is, not just for the people that fill this room, but for literally billions of people around the world that all celebrate the same truth that Jesus is risen from the dead. Let's go to John chapter number 11. All the pleasantries are out of the way, and we can get right into the message this morning. John chapter number 11, we're going to read a story about one of the most famous miracles that Jesus ever did. It is the story of Lazarus who has died, and spoiler alert, if you don't know the story, Jesus is going to bring him back to life. This is not just an unbelievable miracle, but inside of this chapter, you have one of the greatest summaries of the Christian gospel that you could ever find. It's an amazing story with so much truth, and I would like to read it together. As a matter of fact, if your health would allow it, I would love for you to stand with me while we read a few verses together. We're going to read 19 verses. We're going to cherry pick the text, and we're going to figure out, not the whole text, we're going to select a few verses. And if you don't mind, stand with me. Let's read these verses together from John chapter number 11. It says in verse number 1, "Now a certain man was sick. He was named Lazarus. He was of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha." Verse 6, "When Jesus had heard, therefore, that Lazarus was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was." If you read the story, while he waits there, Lazarus dies. Verse number 7, "Then after that, Jesus said to his disciples, 'Let us go again into Judea.' His disciples say unto him, 'Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee.'" Jesus, don't you remember last time we were in Judea, they were trying to kill you. Verse 16, after Jesus sinks his teeth in and says, "No, we're going to go." Thomas said unto him, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, "Let us also go that we may die with him." Jesus shows up on the scene then in Judea. And Martha, verse number 20, as soon as she had heard that Jesus was coming, she went and she met him, but Mary was still in the house. And Martha said unto Jesus, "Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died." These are the words of someone who is grieving, of someone who desperately wishes things could be different. Verse number 23, Jesus said unto her, "Thy brother shall rise again." And Martha said unto him, "I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day." This was very common Jewish belief that at the end of time, God would raise his children from the dead. But Jesus says unto her in verse 25, "I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die." Do you believe this? She said unto him, "Lord, yea, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world." Then verse 32, Mary comes to Jesus. Mary was come to Jesus was, and she saw him, and she fell down at his feet. And she said unto him, very familiar words, listen to the words, same as Martha, "Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died." Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews weeping which came with her, and he groaned in his spirit and was troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" And they said, "Lord, come see." And Jesus wept. Verse 38, Jesus therefore again groaning in himself, comes to the grave. Verse 43, when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice and said, Lazarus, come forth. And when he who was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. His face was bound with a napkin. And Jesus said unto them, loose him and let him go. End of the chapter, verse 53. From that day forth, they took counsel together for to put him to death. Thank you for standing. I appreciate it. You can be seated. Here, Jesus interacts with three siblings. Lazarus is dead and comes back to life. Mary and Martha, the sisters, are grieving. They both say the same words to Jesus. If you had been here, he wouldn't have died. And Jesus' response to the two sisters, though, is wildly divergent. The response is connected, but they're very different responses. With Martha, he gives her truth and starts to talk about resurrection and life. With Mary, he begins to enter into and feel her pain. Very different, but very connected. And ultimately, with Martha, he is telling her that you can have life. Not just that Lazarus is going to have life, but that she can have life. And in turn, we can have life. With Mary, he's telling her that this is because of his death. Look, if you would, again in verse number 23, when Jesus said that your brother's going to rise again. And Martha responds, yeah, I know he's going to rise in the last day. And Jesus told her, hold on. I don't think you're understanding this. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Two thoughts, I'm the resurrection and I'm the life. Then he explains the resurrection. The one that believes in me, even though they die, they're going to undie. They're going to live again. They're going to rise again. That's what resurrection is. The resurrection power that you were speaking of, Mary, I'm confirming the truth. Yes, you're right. There will be a resurrection at the last day. This is not just a Jewish truth, but a Christian truth. That will happen. And yes, it's going to happen because of me. I am the resurrection. That will happen. But also, I am the life. Verse number 26, whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Now, at face value, you might think that these truths are conflicting. You just said you're going to die, but you'll live again. But then you also said you're never going to die. Which one is it? Am I going to die and live again, or am I never going to die? I can't have both. Well, you can't have both. When he speaks of resurrection, he's speaking of a bodily resurrection that awaits the children of God one day, that this will happen. This is a promise. I would love to take a lot of time and explain it to you and give you all the theology and background there, but we're just going to leave it at face value there this morning. I'm the resurrection. But when he speaks of life, he is not talking about physical life, but he is talking about a life that he will give, that you can have, and that will never go away. That's what he says. It'll never die. I will light a flame, and this flame will never be snuffed out. It will go on in perpetuity for forever. You'll never die. When he speaks of life, I am the life, he's talking about a different level or reality of life that is spiritual life. Now, let me see if I can help you understand this. We all get that there are levels to life. We all know that we have plants that are living. Some of you water them and you put them by the window in the summer and you even whisper to them and talk to them and you're a crazy plant lady or man and we love you for it. Your plants are living, and if you don't take care of them, they'll die because they're alive. But they don't feel in the same way that you would feel. They don't think. They don't muse. They're not alive in the same way that, say, an animal is. The flora and the fauna are both alive, but there's different levels of life. Animals begin to have senses. They begin to hear and see and taste and smell. They begin to experience some version of joy or of fear. If you have a dog, you know this, that at times you get mad at your dog and they cower in fear. At times you walk in the door and they're happy to see you and they wag their tail. Animals begin to experience some of this, and an animal experiences life on a whole different dimension than a tomato does. It's just the way it is. We as humans get to experience life on a whole nother dimension than the animals do. We biologically are similar to animals, but we have a version of life and a quality of life and a level of life that is altogether different. We have morality, like this moral compass inside of us, this sense of right and wrong that animals do not possess. A polar bear will eat its child if it's hungry enough. And you know what a polar bear will not do? Go to sleep and toss and turn and think, I'm filled with regret. Why have I done it again? It won't do that. It doesn't feel that. There's no compulsion that what that was done was right or wrong somehow. We know morality. We know rationality. We want to know. We want to learn. We want to study. We want to read. We want to grow. We know personality. We want to love. We desire community and connection and relationship with other people. We know eternality. Like we want to last. Animals don't think about their legacy and if they're leaving a future and if people will remember them. They're not somehow wringing their hands over death, fearing it, but humans do this. We know originality. We want to create. We like beauty. We like art. A cow has never looked at a sunset and said, wow. Someone told me after the first service, they said the cow would never say, this is moving. That was their words. Animals don't know this, but we do, right? We get this. We get that there are levels, that a tomato to an animal to us, but you have to understand what Jesus is talking about here when he says that I have life, I am life, I will give you life, and this life will never end. He is talking about a whole nother level or dimension to life that humans can enjoy. We do not enjoy it by default, but we can enjoy, which is spiritual life. It is the idea that you become alive to God, that your heart belongs to him, and that the spiritual lights are somehow turned on, that you begin to be drawn to God, that you begin to be drawn to his word, you begin to be drawn to his people, and suddenly God is no longer distant, but he's real, and truth is no longer abstract, but it's clear, and sin is no longer casual, but it's convicting, and hope is no longer wishful, but it's certain. It's something that is called spiritual life or spiritual vitality. Some of you have discerned this with people in your life, or maybe you've experienced it personally, where you came to faith in Jesus and there was spiritual life that happened in you. Or perhaps one of your relatives or friends came to faith in Jesus and someone walked up to you or you walked up to them and you said, it's you, but it's not you. Like it's you. You look the same. It's the same picture that's on your driver's license. You have the same name. You're the same height. You still like to eat the same food, and you have some of the same music taste, but it's not you. It's like your desires have changed. It's like your way of thinking has changed. It's like you're seeing the world through a different lens. It's your habit is changing. Your words are changing. Like it's you, but it's not you. And you're right. What has happened there? For someone who doesn't know about spiritual life, that can be very threatening. If their child or their spouse or their sibling has spiritual life, it can be seen as this night and day, like what in the world is happening. It can be very unnerving, but to those who experience it, they know that it's not death, it's life. It is beautiful and joyous and love-filled to be able to experience spiritual life and vitality. And this is why the Bible will oftentimes refer to this in terms like being born again, or being made a new creature, where all things have become new. There are these descriptors that are laid on what Jesus is talking about here through the text of the Bible that indicate to us that this is a whole nother dimension or level of life where my heart is alive to God and I begin to see and experience life in an entirely different way. And what is beautiful about this is that there's two aspects to spiritual life that you have to understand. One is that it's forever. Jesus says as much very clearly. You're going to get it, and it's never going to stop in you. This life will never die. It will go on forever. This is actually, if you read the New Testament, the most common descriptor of this type of life. It normally is not called spiritual life. It's normally called everlasting life or eternal life. Why? Because it goes for forever. Once you're alive to God, you're never dead to God. You're alive. But what you need to understand is that it's not just that it goes on, but it goes deep. Because if we experienced life that just went on forever, I don't know that that would be anything to write home about. If life, just like this, went on forever, and we had disease, and we had suffering, and pain, and sickness, and heartache, and regrets, and bad memories, I don't know that we would want that for forever. But there is a quality and a depth to this life that it doesn't state it overtly in the English text when you read, I am the life, or you will have life and never die, but it is there in the Greek. There was 2 words for life in the Greek language, still are. One is bios, which is biology, it's existence. The other is zoe, which is quality of life. The word that Jesus uses when he says, I am the life, is not bios, it's zoe. And what he's promising to Martha is that, Martha, I have a quality of life, a spiritual life for you, life on the highest plane that I am willing to give to you. I think deep down, we all get something of this. I can try to explain it. I can try to read Jesus' words. I can try to give you analogies, but I think maybe the best thing that I could say is that you get this. If you are on the side of the coin where you have put your faith in Jesus and you know what it's like to have his life and to be spiritually alive, then you get this because you've lived it and experienced it. If you're on the other side of the coin, perhaps you've seen someone else do it, or perhaps you've just had this itching feeling on the inside that there was something more, that life was meant to be a little bit richer, a little bit brighter, a little bit fuller, a bit more joyous, a bit more peace, but you can't quite figure out. It's sand slipping through your fingers all the time. You're trying to get it, and you're trying to find it in stuff or in relationships or in sex or whatever it is, but you just can't quite get a hold of it. It's because you're looking for this. You're looking for this quality of life, this spiritual life that Jesus offers. So he comes to Martha and he tells Martha, Martha, you can live, like really live. You can really live. I am the life. I'll give that to you. But he comes to Mary, and Mary's words and Jesus' words too are just, they're so different. And what he says basically is you can live because he embraced death. Now, you may not notice this in John 11 because typically we so fixate on Lazarus, we miss this, but it's right in front of your face. There's a tension in the story. Jesus has the power to bring life, but he's marching to his own death. If you noticed in verses 6 and 7, they said, Jesus, don't go there. They're going to kill you. And Jesus said, I'm going anyway. So Thomas said, verse 16 or 18, I forget which one. Well, I guess we're going to go die with him. Then you get to the end of the chapter, and what do you find? From that day forward, they conspired to kill him. Yes, there were moments where they were enraged and they wanted to kill him. Their anger bubbled up. But for the most part, the people that were against Jesus were trying to entrap him. They were trying to trick him. They were trying to somehow belittle him or discredit him. They hadn't gone full-fledged. We just got to come up with a bulletproof plan to murder this guy. But this was the line of demarcation. This miracle was too big, too bold, too public. And when people heard about it, they said, we got to get rid of him. And if you keep reading the story of Jesus, you find out that it's just a matter of a handful of days before they do, in fact, kill him. They put him on a cross. Their plan works. All through the text, he is going to his death. And you think, well, what is it that is so compelling you to go somewhere where they're going to try to be a mob that lynches you? They're going to try to eliminate you and exterminate you. What would push you and propel you to still do it anyway? And the answer is in Jesus' response to Mary. Because Mary sees him and she falls down at his feet. She says the same words as Martha. Lord, if you had been here, my brother hadn't died. But Jesus doesn't give her a ministry of truth. What does Jesus do? It says, verse number 33, that when he saw her weeping, he saw the Jews which were weeping, don't miss this, he groaned in his spirit, and he was troubled. And then the ever famous shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. Then verse 38, again, groaning in himself, he comes to the grave. What is happening? Don't miss this. The word groaning there is probably too soft a word to tell you the truth. The word indicates an animal that is so angry that it snorts. Think a bull who cannot get that matador, but he wants him. So he kicks the dust and he lowers his head and he snorts because he's angry and he's after it. I remember the first time that I saw something like this that wasn't in animal form but was in human form. I had been angry before. I had seen people angry before. I had been to funerals before. I had never been in the room when someone passed away up until this point in my life, but I remember very early on in pastoral ministry being in a hospital room. And it was one of those hospital rooms that you just didn't want to be in. You were there and the doctor came in and the doctor gave the news that no one wants to hear. And as a pastor, you get to be in homes when people take their last breath, or in those hospital rooms, or at times in those hospital waiting rooms where that news is delivered. And it's an honor and a privilege, but it's also a very sombering, weighty thing. And I can remember experiencing that for the first time and just trying to do my best to take it in and to help people where they were. But I vividly remember a man in the corner of the room who was just mad. He didn't scream, he didn't punch anything. It was just, it was just anger that someone had tragically died, and they were doing everything they could to control, but they were just mad. That's a very human response. That's a very Christ-like response, according to John 11. That Jesus, when he sees the devastation that is caused by death, he's just, and this anger condensates into tears, and he weeps, and then he's mad again. Now, what is happening? What is happening is, in some seed form, what was about to happen a few days later for you and me. Jesus is marching towards his own death because he is angry at what is hurting and killing these people, quite literally. And his anger over what is hurting them and killing them and disturbing them is so profound, and he wants to fix it so badly that he is willing to go put his life on the line and to be at risk of being murdered because he wants to fix their problem. He's not just feeling their pain, he is there to help and to fix their pain. This is a prototype of what was going to happen when Jesus would look at not just Lazarus and the pain of this death, but he would look at humanity. And he would look and see the pain and the devastation and the death that our sin causes. And so the grand story of Jesus is that he comes to fix a problem. He comes to give his life a ransom for many. He comes because he is enraged and outraged at what is hurting us and killing us, and he wants to fix it, and he wants to fix it so badly that he's willing to go die for it. That is the story of the Christian gospel. That he is willing to put his life on the line, not just risk his life, but certainly lay down his life so that he can fix what is ailing and bring life to our death. Jesus here in this text and in our own life knew that the only way to stop Lazarus' funeral was to cause his own. Jesus knew that for us to get up out of the grave, he was going to have to get into the grave. There is this story of love and compassion and this life and resurrection that he offers, but it is at a cost. Not a cost to us, because it's free to us, but it is a cost to him. And he's willing to sacrifice, and he's willing to put his life on the line. Ultimately, we know, and we remembered, and we celebrated, and we sang, and we preached on Friday, about Good Friday, that he died for us, in our place, for our sin. Why? Because he's the resurrection and the life, so that we can have resurrection and life. That's why. But notice, if you would, in the text, that it's not just we can have life. What a beautiful offer that is, because he's willing to die. But it's if we believe. He's very pointed with Martha about this. He tells her that he's the resurrection and the life. And then he gets to the end of verse number 26 and he says, Martha, point blank, yes or no, do you believe? Believest thou this? And what does Martha say? She answers in the affirmative, yea. Lord, I do believe. I believe that you're the Christ. I believe you're the chosen one. I believe that you're the Son of God, which should come into the world. Now, everybody believes something about Jesus. I don't know a lot of you. I do know a lot of you, but I don't know many of you. I don't know your stories, but I know this about every single one of you. You all believe something about Jesus. You may just believe that he was a good man. You may believe that he was a good teacher, that he was a moral example. Some people believe that he was a lunatic and what he said was crazy. You may believe that he is the Savior of the world and that he died on a cross for sins and that he rose from the dead. I don't know exactly what you believe, but you believe something. Jesus is here calling Martha, who did believe something. It's not like she had no relationship with Jesus at all. But he is calling her to believe more than something broadly, but to believe very specifically and very narrowly on him. That he was in fact the resurrection and he was in fact the life and no one else was. And she says, that is what I believe. In you and in you alone. You're the chosen one. You're not one of the chosen ones. You're the chosen one. You're the Messiah. You are the Son of God. Not a Son of God. You're the Son of God. You're it. He's trying to get her from a place of general belief to trusting in him. That really is the trick. From believing on Jesus broadly to trusting in Jesus specifically. All of you know what it's like to trust. I know this because you're doing it right now. You're sitting on a chair, and while I have talked, you have not 1 second thought, oh, this chair is going to collapse, and I'm going to fall on the floor, and everyone's going to look at me. It's going to cause a commotion. They're going to laugh at me. You don't think that because you trust the chair to hold you. You're willing to actually put your body in its arms. Jesus is the same way. You can't just believe that he could, or that he would, or that he should. You have to put your trust in him. You got to put all your chips on him and say, Jesus, I believe on you. I'm trusting in you. Now, this is the point where many people think, well, why should I do that? And that's a very fair question. There's been lots of religious leaders and sages and prophets all throughout time that have said, I'm the one, I'm awesome, believe in me, I'm telling you the truth. There's been lots of them. Why should Jesus be any different than anyone else? And the answer to that, of course, is rooted in why we're here today. We are here on Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, because Jesus did something that no one else had ever done before, and that he canceled his own funeral and he got up out of the grave. And if that's true, believe everything he said. If it's not true, believe nothing that he said. It is the linchpin. It is the key to should I believe on Jesus or not. And yes, there's more to his life than just his resurrection. We know that he was not just an ordinary man. Anyone would tell you this. It doesn't take, even an atheist would tell you that there was something unique about this guy. There's been more poems written to him, more songs sung about him, more lyrics penned, more time spent. The book that was written about him is the #1 bestseller of all time by a million miles. There had to be something about this guy. And what we know is that he wasn't just an ordinary man. That he was God come in the flesh, and that he lived a life that was a show-stopping life. It's not just the miracles where he's raising people from the dead and healing people's sight and giving sight to the blind and making the lame to walk again. It's not just that. It's in the words that he spoke and the wisdom that he had and the fact that he was willing to go to the cross, and not just to a cross, but on Easter Sunday morning, people come to put flowers on his grave, and he walks out of the grave and says, put them in a vase on your kitchen table. You don't need them anymore. I'm alive. Like, that's unique. That's special. That's something that compels us to have a validity to the truth claim that Jesus, in fact, is resurrection and is life, and he offers resurrection and life to anyone who will believe on his name. And you have to wrestle with this and say, do I believe on his name or not? And I'm here to tell you from personal experience, living on the other side of experiencing spiritual life or being born again or whatever term you want to put on it, that you're not going to find what Dorothy found in The Wizard of Oz. You're not going to find an ordinary man who has a bunch of smoke and mirrors and actually isn't special. That's not it. I love that Jesus gives you almost a proof that he says, I'm the resurrection. Okay, that means one day something's going to happen to you. You're going to have eternity with me. You'll rise again. But how can you know one day? It's not today. But he doesn't just promise you one day. He promises you today. Today I'll give you life. I'll give you life that doesn't cease. You can know if this is true because he will turn the lights on spiritually in ways that deep down, I believe that all of us crave. He will make us alive to God in ways that are so profound that you cannot do it yourself, and it's really hard to even put words around. And if you've lived that, and you know that, I'm here to say, let's celebrate that, let's sing, let's joy in that, let's feast with some good food this afternoon about that, let's have a great time with that. But if you don't know that, I'm here to say, believe you can know that. You don't have to do anything yourself other than believe. Yes, it's humbling to admit, I don't have it, but I need it, and I want it. It costs him everything, but it doesn't cost you anything. It's a free gift via his grace. I pray that today's message challenged and encouraged you in your walk with Christ. And if this sermon was a blessing to you, know that it was made available because of our financial partners. I want to take a moment and invite you to be a part of that tribe. I know not everyone's in a position to give, and if that's you, then please just let this broadcast be a blessing. There are no strings attached. But if God's blessed you with the ability to give, I would love for you to link arms with us and support what God is doing here. As a small way of saying thank you for your generosity, I'd love to send you a copy of my new book, The Prayer Jesus Gave. This is a guided tour through the model prayer, the Our Father, as some call it. And if you've ever felt like your prayer life could use an upgrade, I know it will be a help. You can give and receive your copy at harvesttayou.org/give. or by mailing a donation to the address on your screen. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Sunday.